to welcome everybody. We can go to the next slide. As a reminder, my name is Leah and I'm your neutral facilitator for today. And hey, let's just all be grateful for remote meetings, right? So none of us have to drive in the snowstorms that we might be experiencing today. I want to welcome everybody to our 6th RAC meeting. And if we go to the next slide, we can review today's agenda. Now, this information has been sent out to people ahead of time, so you will have had an opportunity to look over the materials and be prepared to give feedback in today's meeting. So to begin today's agenda, we will have a little update of our last meeting and talk about DHS updates since we last met, and then focus the bulk of today's time on policy development work. So we're going to be hearing from DHS some descriptors about services, and then you are going to make a determination about which waiver you would want to see that service fall under. And we'll do that 2 different times, covering 14 different services today. And I will call on people individually to give me your decision about which waiver or both waivers that service should fall under. We will have breaks today. You see 2 10-minute breaks, so there will be time to take a break during today's longer meeting. And then at the end, we'll have a quick wrap up and what lies ahead for the next meetings before we all snuggle up and stay warm in our homes today. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, if you would like live captions, there's the link there. You should be able to see the captions over to the right-hand side. And then for RAC members, for all of you here today, the objective is for you to review the waiver service definitions that will be presented to you by DHS members, and then provide your feedback on which services should belong under which waiver. For DHS staff that are here today, they're going to provide context on the topics for discussion. They'll be listening to your responses with your recommendations about which waiver the service should fall under. And they are here to answer questions and to note any follow-up that we can give you between this meeting and the next. Next slide, please. And Maria is now going to give you Megan is going to give you a recap of October's meeting. Sorry, Megan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Leah. Yes, Maria and I get confused very often. Just to recap very quickly, the October RAC meeting was a learning session for members about the budget development process, which we have undergone over the last handful of years and will be revisiting in future years as the Min Choices revision rollout happens. So we really wanted to highlight both where we've been and where we're going, as well as the RAC rule for that. And fortunately, we had some time that we didn't anticipate at the end of the meeting where members did get to ask a lot of questions to clarify their learning. We sent an after-meeting evaluation asking members about their remaining questions if they had them, and if they'd like to have another shorter meeting to address some of those questions. For the first 3 weeks following the meeting and when that evaluation went out, we got a very small number of responses. And so to address that and not take up more of our shared time, we have scheduled and had a handful so far meetings with individual members. We did receive a few more responses after the fact, but we also just reached out to those individuals. So we saw an increase in interest. And so if we have any questions or we're seeing a big theme to those questions, we'll bring them back to the full group as we start in February, just to make sure that we can all hear and reflect on the questions that remain. Luckily, a lot of those questions were around the topic we'll be covering in February. So we look forward to digging into that with you all more in a couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And we can go on to the next slide and introduce Leah, who's going to take you through the next few slides.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I hope everyone can hear me okay. You want to go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. I'm going to just provide a couple of updates here. A membership update for the second term and just touch base briefly on the work ahead in 2023. So as far as membership updates, there will be 4 new members joining us the second term of the advisory committee. So starting in February, we'll have 4 new faces. We'll welcome them during the meeting, do some introductions. So that will take a little bit of time during that meeting. I wanted to share that Don Barnes is one member that didn't reapply for the second term, and he was really hoping he could join in today, but unfortunately he couldn't join us, but he wanted to share that he appreciated all the hard work of the committee and wishes everybody the best of luck. The 2023 work plan for us. So this right now is just a snapshot of the work that we have planned ahead, and it's tentative, so things can fluctuate, but it's nice to have a roadmap for us to start from. So these are the policy topics that we will discuss and develop recommendations for over the next year. February will be focused on service mixes and rates. In April, we'll continue to discuss services by waiver and a 2-waiver system. That's part of the discussion that we're working on today. And in April, we'll have a similar meeting to the process that we have today to talk about the remaining services. In June, the topics will be about exceptions, budget exceptions, rate exceptions, and CDCS exceptions. In August, we'll finalize policy recommendations for services by waiver, the names of the new waivers and descriptions of the waivers, and we'll start the discussion on CDCS services by waiver or expanding self-direction. The topic for October will be budget and policy communication, as well as learning about traditional versus CDCS services for purposes of budgeting. And in December, we'll continue to develop recommendations for CDCS services by waiver. So a lot of work ahead, but we're setting some of that foundation today to help us kick off the new year. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just wanted to share a little bit about some of the thinking behind the 2023 communication plan. I know that some of you have been very interested in helping us formulate a communication plan, help us implement communication, and we're going to take you up on that offer. We're working on the communication plan as we speak. Our goals for next year are really to share and seek input more broadly on advisory committee recommendations. We want to put some emphasis on outreach to people, families, and advocates. We're planning to conduct 3 to 4 virtual events, 3 to 4 surveys, 3 to 4 hub virtual insight panel engagement opportunities, and more as things get fleshed out a little bit. And again, some of you expressed an interest when we did a survey in August and helping us implement communication and engagement. So we'll be reaching out to you early next year to see where you can fit into that process. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to start getting into some of the real work here. So after the August meeting, we surveyed the advisory committee and we received a lot of feedback, including how to prioritize some of these policy topics related to reshaping the waivers. And services by waiver was the highest priority amongst those who completed the survey. And so that's where we're going to start. We wanted to make sure that the advisory committee was informing the agenda and the priorities of the policy conversations. So again, starting that conversation today and then hopefully finishing at least the preliminary conversation in April on where services should fit by each of the 2 new waivers. And so for today and for April, we're going to be focused on those traditional provider managed services and not consumer directed community support or self-directed services. We'll just start discussing CDCS services by waiver after we're done with the traditional waiver service menu development. So now let's just move on to the next slide to talk about what we are going to do today. These are instructions, just wanted to provide to people so you're aware of the process that we're going to go through. So DHS is going to describe a service, and if you have it available, you can refer back to the document titled Service Description Resource Document. This was sent out early in December as the package of materials for this meeting. I sent it out again on Tuesday and then also included it in the meeting invite and sent it out today, this morning as well. So you should have that in your email today. It's again called Service Description Resource Document. Something good to refer back to if you have it available. DHS will also share results from pre-meeting feedback related to each service described. And I just wanted to note that 12 members completed the form. Members were instructed to reach out to their networks to seek additional input. And there are members that did do that, which was great. Some approaches to engaging networks included posting to Facebook, tallying responses to those, and seeking input during regularly scheduled advocate meetings. As members, again, it's really critical that you reach out to your networks and seek input on policy topics ongoing. You're the voice for others in your role as an advisory committee member, so it's very important. So after educating members on the services and sharing pre-meeting feedback, we'll have 5 minutes for Q&A per service related to the service described. You can ask questions in chat, or you can raise your hand and ask questions verbally. As we open up for questions, think about which waiver that service should be available under. Some of you have already sought input on this, you've already thought about it, but in hearing the discussion, you might get more information to help you really be informed and think things through. The services planned for the first round of policy discussion include 24-hour emergency assistance, adult day services, assistive technology, chore services, crisis respite, day support services, and environmental accessibility adaptations. After we discuss the first 7 services, there will be time for members to share recommendations on which waiver each service should fit under. Members will have approximately 1 minute for this exercise. Again, if you need a reminder of service definitions, you can use the document titled Service Description Resource Document for reference. Now I'm going to hand it over to Maria to share another resource before we get into the service policy discussion. Maria?
Thank you, Leah. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm on the waiver policy team. Excited to talk about services with you all today. Before we jump into services, I wanted to just show you how to navigate what we call the Community-Based Services Manual, or CBSM. So what Mary's doing right now is she's going to share the CBSM page, the home page. So the CBSM link is provided in your PowerPoint, so you should be able to click on the link and navigate there. And when you click on the link, this is what should come up. And if you notice on the left side, it says Find in Table of Contents, Homepage, A to Z. And so click on the A to Z, and it will take you to our alphabetized list of pages. So for example, our first service today we're going to talk about is 24-hour emergency assistance. So Mary's going to click on that. And then this is the full policy page for this service. Now,
Excuse me 1 second. Okay,
yeah,
I had a packet and I've been following so far. And so, and I have a little assistance here. Now, in the packet that you sent me, what you're talking about now, I'm not seeing that, or is that with this description resource document? Or this just not with the contents that you sent me at all?
yeah, Arbella, this is the full policy manual. So only if people wanted to look at the full policy for each service. So the resource document we sent was the overview description. But we wanted to make
Okay,
sure people just know how to navigate this page if they want to read more or had, just wanted to play
okay,
around in it.
what you presenting now, I don't have it in this packet. It's on the web.
Correct.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Go ahead. I'm with you. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for that question. Thank you for clarifying. So then if, say we're done with this service, we want to go to the next service, you're going to go back to the left side and select the arrow next to home page and it'll drop down. And then you would just select A to Z again. And then you could use the alphabet to get to the next service. I just follow that process to go back and forth between the different services. So let's jump back into the PowerPoint. And again, it's totally optional for you to look at that or not look at it. It's just another resource and it's the full policy manual. Yep, and we will have somebody put the link in the chat. Thank you. Okay, so just a quick overview of 24-hour emergency assistance. This service is an on-call counseling and problem solving and/or an immediate response for help at a person's home that is related to a health or personal emergency. So this is going to include immediate response for in-person staff at your home. It's going to include some of that on-call counseling and problem solving. So, hey, what do? I need some help. Someone can help walk you through a situation. And it will also include purchasing and ongoing monitoring expenses for people who have personal emergency response system. So when can you receive this service is when you live in your own home or with a primary caregiver and you do not otherwise receive the 24-hour supervision, and then you meet that eligibility requirement of having health or personal emergencies, so that intermittent support need. This would be a duplication if a person was in a provider managed residential service, because that service is supposed to be supporting the person 24 hours a day. So let's go to the next slide. So here's the pre-meeting feedback we had for waiver 1, which is in a person's home or in their family home. We had 5 people recommend that this be put there. On the provider only, so provider managed homes only, or waiver 2, nobody recommended it only be put there. And then we had 7 people recommend that is 24-hour emergency assistance be available on both waivers. So we're just going to open it up for question and answers for a few minutes.
I'm looking at my handout, and my handout says 4, but you had mentioned 5 recommendations.
5 people want it to be just on waiver 1, which would be own home or family home.
Yep,
see
we
it
got
again.
before because we mailed out your
Yeah.
materials and we got a couple of, or at
Okay.
least one latecomer. So we had to change to
Okay.
make sure that all of the survey data got in there. So I think you're maybe one
I hope I was
form
that
behind.
one. I hope I
Mhm.
was that one and you got mine. Thank you. I'm with you. Go. You can
Okay.
continue.
Thank you. Elizabeth, did you have a question?
Yes, I was one of the people that put both, and I know that you have on the eligibility that it's only for people who don't receive 24-hour supervision. But I have heard many stories of some people in 24-hour supervised homes who, have a caregiver that might be asleep on them or is hostile in some way. And I can imagine that somebody might need somebody else if, their home isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, I would want them to be able to have immediate access to somebody, even if that person just helps them mediate with the person who is supposed to be providing their care. Because, those things happen, and staffing shortages being what they are, they sometimes hire people that aren't great. And somebody might still need somebody in off hours and not have time to wait for a, administrative complaint or something. So that was why I put both.
Great, thank you. We have some other comments as well. Can the requirement for not available in a provider managed home be changed? I am part of a DHS run culture of safety and data action group, and many providers need this available, especially smaller providers. Another comment that this feels like a trick question. If it's not intended for people in assisted living of some sort, how would it be available in that waiver? Another person said, I agree with Elizabeth. A comment to say, I would recommend it in both without this caveat in place. I agree, especially with staffing shortages. I recommend both. Okay, so people are getting to the point where they are ready to recommend. I want to just wait a beat and see if anybody else has questions. Okay, then I think we can move to the next one. And I do want to say, our services like customized living, like community residential services, some of those, with the rate, those costs are assumed, right? So a provider could spend their rate to purchase that stuff in their homes. I can't speak in a lot of details to that, but I wanted to put that out there as well, that to make some changes would mean going into the rate statute. So this would be one where we would need to probably look at rate statutes and adjust provider rates, since that's assumed and included in the rate. So I think let's go to the next.
Okay, I just got one quick one. So if it's like that, would it be taken away from something else that they receive if they use that option that you just talked about? They would be able to, pay for it out of the allotment that was allocated.
Yeah,
How
so
would, how would
Ardella,
that?
I am not the rates person, so I
No,
don't want to get, and we're not talking about rates. I was providing that as additional context. So if we decide to move forward and put this between both waivers, there would need to be some other changes that occur, was what my point was. So I don't
okay,
have all the answers. That's just a next step
okay.
I'm noting.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Maria, this is Bud. Can I make 2 quick points?
sure.
The first, and I think it picks up on some of the comments, is, there's the desire to avoid duplication of services. If we're already paying the provider that owns or controls the setting, like a CRS provider, group home provider, to provide that kind of backup, they shouldn't need another kind of emergency backup. But the reality is that with staffing shortages, we do have providers who are asking, parents to take adult children home for the weekends and that kind of thing. So there's a difference between the underlying policy ideal and the reality on the ground. And if the main goal is to make sure that people have access when they need it to emergency assistance, I think we might have to be more flexible on the policy side, and that would counsel in favor of having it available under both waivers. The second point, and this point permeates all of these discussions, is we're still a little fuzzy about which services fall under which waiver. So the life sharing model, it sounds like the life sharing model is going to be under waiver 2, but that's a different kind of model than a CRS model, and it's not assuming 24-hour supervision. And it is probably the kind of model that would want to have something like 24-hour emergency assistance built into it. in which case that would be another reason to have it under both waivers. But I think we're going to run into that kind of question because there's some fuzziness around the edges of what each proposed waiver includes, and that's going to probably lead us to oftentimes recommend that all these services be available under both waivers because there might be some circumstances under each where they should be available. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Bud. That's all very helpful. And we're noting all these comments as well. And I will say too that we probably will see a lot of overlap because the intent is not to prevent people from having the supports that they need. The intent of the two different waivers is to separate out the provider managed settings and the people who live in their own homes. So let's talk about Adult Day really quick. This is a service that includes individual, so person-based activities that are designed to meet the health and social needs of a person who is 18 years or older outside of their home during the day. And with Waiver Reimagine, any new Adult Day will be serving people who are 55 years or older. Adult Day services include delivery of supervision, care, assistance, training, and activities direct toward meeting outcomes in a person's support plan. An adult day is provided in a licensed adult day center or a licensed family residential setting, often called family adult day services. This also includes or can include adult day, can include a bath. So for people maybe who don't have that support in their home and they go to an adult day, they could have a service called adult day bath. So is there any questions on this service?
I do have a question. This is Ania. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. My question is you stated, so on the screen it says 18 years and older, but you just stated 55 and older. Can you kind of explain that?
Yep. So with the HCBS settings rule and with some of our streamlining work, anybody who would be new to adult day services after January 1st of 2020 would need to be 55 years or older. The service was really developed as like a go into a center and be in community with other people, but it wasn't necessarily developed to help reach some of our employment goals that we have for people or the needs of people who are younger and maybe not ready to retire from work or other activities. So that was a change in January of 2020. Anybody who had it before that time at any point can still access it if they're younger than 55.
And is there an alternative already for individuals who are in between that 18 and 55?
Yeah, there are several other day and employment services. So we have day support services, which is going to look again more like community-based activities and programs. We'll have the employment services. So there's 3 employment services, which help people explore, discover, and maintain employment. And then we have pre-vocational services, which is up to 36 months of time to develop some work skills.
Maria, Rosalie has had her hand raised for some time. Can you please?
Okay, I can't see them.
I can't see hands raised either, so I'm not sure what's going on.
I just wanted to clarify the process because I had my hand up, so I guess I'll just speak if I have another comment. But Bud did say the points that I wanted to say previously, but it took a while to get recognized.
Yeah, sorry guys, I can't see any of the hands. I think I saw one hand one time.
This is the other Leah. I only see Trisha's hand raised at the moment.
Trisha, did you have a comment?
I was just looking for some clarification. Are these discussions that we're having about these services to apply across the board to children and adults?
Depending on the service, yes.
Well, obviously adult services don't apply to a 5-year-old, right? But otherwise, unless, yeah, other than the word adult in there, we're pretty much to assume that all of these cover children and adults.
Yep, okay, unless there's a specific limitation. Yep, thank you for that question. I'm trying to keep now my chat open as well, so if you have a question that you want to speak, but I only have 2 screens and then I'm trying to go between notes. So thank you guys for letting us know.
I'll keep an eye on that too, Maria. It takes a village.
Thank you guys. All right, let's go to what the pre-meeting feedback showed us on this service. So we had of everybody who provided feedback, 12 people, all 12 recommended both. So that is pretty unanimous, and I don't know if anybody is surprised, and we'll be able to vote on that at the end. Let's move to the next service. Assistive technology. Yeah, and so Chad, you just said, should we speak or say we want to speak in the chat? I think that would be easiest because I think I can keep an eye on that, and Leah and others can see it as well. So assistive technology, it includes devices, equipment, or a combination of both that improve a person's ability to communicate in the community, control or access their environment, or perform activities of daily living. Assistive technology also covers the assessment of the person's need for assistive devices, including software. And this is on, today, this is on the DD waiver only, and assistive technology is covered under BI, CAC, and CADI through specialized equipment and supplies, but they are 2 distinct services. So assistive technology is its own service, and we are moving to reconcile those 2 so that it's available across the board. So let's go to the next slide. And then we'll see the recommendations. Again, we have 12 recommendations that this service be available across both waivers. Does anybody have questions on this service? And hold on, before we jump in, Lisa, I see your comment, and if we have time at the end, we're going to take additional questions. So if it's okay, we can get to that point and answer it.
I have a question. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the difference in how it stands now? You said because it falls under two different definitions under the current what we have now.
Yeah, so I think Ardella, so this service, assistive technology,
Yeah.
it's also like a modality of equipment or supplies. And so
So
on
it
the
was
DD waiver, there's assistive technology, but if
okay.
you were to ask your case manager today, like, I need some assistive tech, they're gonna, if you're on the BI, CAC, or CADI, they're gonna talk about the service specialized equipment and supplies.
Okay, would that be to communicate or medical supplies? You know, when I say medical
Yep.
supply,
Yep.
you know, sometimes there's machines that's involved versus the technology to communicate versus like the parafran or some type of device that's needed as far as the to maintain care.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So specialized equipment and supplies, which we're not talking about, does all of that. Assistive technology, this service that we're talking about now, is going to be for communication, interacting with your environment,
Okay.
all of
Okay.
that kind of
I
stuff,
got it.
doing
Thank you.
tasks.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this one?
Maria, there's a comment from Saudaj.
It's about the adult day services, and I think I'm gonna my colleague Stephen is trying to answer Lisa's question. So
Great, thank you.
okay, let's move to the next page. Leah, am I on pace? Well, I'm trying to keep track of time, but it's a little like juggling.
You are. I'm keeping track of the total, so we're okay so far.
Chore services. This is a service that's going to include assistance that's provided to you or your primary caregiver to help maintain a clean, sanitary, and safe environment. So that's going to look like living in your own home or with somebody else, but not in a provider owned or managed setting. And when we talk about chore services, we're talking about sort of those bigger tasks that occur around a house, like dumpster rentals, some general indoor and outdoor home maintenance. So thinking like lawn care, snow removal, grocery delivery, and then heavy household chores like securing rugs, washing windows, and walls and floors, like that deep cleaning. Rosalie, I see your hand.
Thank you. This is Rosalie. I have a quick question regarding grocery delivery. And I know right now the current service and policy is that food is supposed to be provided by the residential provider. But I'm curious if people have control over like what they want to eat and all of that, and they're supposed to have that choice. I'm just curious, like, is that then the residential provider's responsibility to then allow the person to then grocery shop for themselves of what they want to make and what they want to eat? Or is there flexibilities perhaps to consider specifically to like food? I understand like the other ones makes more sense that it wouldn't be residential, but grocery delivery right off the bat just seems like there could be some potential flexibilities for creating more independence and control. But that would be my
Yeah, I
question.
think that's a kind of a complex question too. So, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. There's a lot. I'm just thinking, I don't know if you can see the wheels of my head turning. What a great conversation you've opened up. I think that part of it is going back to the larger framework of how like room and board is paid in people who live in residential settings, right? Because part of what they're paying in the rent is also sometimes for groceries. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity for that conversation, and then there would need to be parameters, right? Because why, if you're getting your groceries delivered and then you're paying for them yourself, why would you also pay the residential provider for that board care, right? You would just pay for rooms. So that's kind of what I'm processing through right now. Yeah, Rosalie?
And this just like, I think this goes back to like what some points that Bud brought up earlier is how are these waivers going to be self-directed if you're in a residential facility? And what does the, I mean, overall, like what flexibilities could be built in policy wise to really address some of the continual and ongoing service issues? Because some people have been putting in the chat like about cultural needs or food allergies, and providers right now are not giving people choice even in their own food options. Like those are things that we're hearing when we're helping consumers on a consistent basis. So, even if there isn't those policy flexibilities too, like how do we make it more clear to providers that you are violating people's rights and choices by providing these flexibilities and these choices?
Yeah, and I am measuring my thoughts right now. Yes, that should be happening. The HCBS settings rule and the state's work with providers around that should have made it very clear that people do get to choose what they eat, where they eat, when they eat. All of that should be happening. And so I see that it doesn't, Julia, that's what I'm hearing today. I think that that's a compliance issue too. So that's more about how do we, like you were saying, Rosalie, how do we look at compliance of providers or case managers or who, all these different checks we have to make sure they're doing what they need to be doing so that people do have control over all of that. And Kate, I saw your comment. Even if we live with elderly parents, yes, you should be getting chore services if you and your primary caregiver cannot do those tasks. So it'll keep you in your home. So that's how it should be working today. So I think that's the other part of this conversation is we're having a theoretical, here's how things should look. And then we're hearing from you all about, okay, but here's how things are working. And then we're going to reconcile what that looks like for all of us moving forward into the future. So I think that's a good thought too. And yes, the delivery options, you could have grocery delivery through chore, but again, the payment of groceries would not be covered.
Uh, Hi. I'm sorry I can't use the other, but I'll make this quick. Okay, now with what you talking about in the context of the person that's living on their own and the Meals on Wheels, how would that kind of fit up in there? Or how is Meals on Wheels incorporated in this? I'm done.
Thanks, Arbella. Yep. So Meals on Wheels is going to be through the homemaker service, which we will talk about at a later time, not right here. Um, so
Thank
I
you.
think,
I
yep,
got
I think I'm hearing a lot about, like, we're talking a lot about compliance or what things are supposed to look like. And I think we need to be empowered, all of us, to really look at what we're supposed to be expecting, and then how can we get to that as a state, right? Like, and so from my perspective as a state staff, I go to, okay, what's our policy? If it's not being implemented, how can we get to that? So I really appreciate hearing from all of you guys. A complaint, I would go to the ombuds. That is where I would always start with people, is go to the ombudsman's office. That's supposed to be our resource to help people with disabilities and mental health to get the rights and the services they're supposed to have. But I'm not speaking out of turn saying that, am I?
No, but if we have a problem with, 500 service providers and the same, issue, then it might take our office a little while to try to fix all those problems. I'm just saying that the enforcement of expectations goes far beyond our office, but we do exist to help on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say it's hard to make what, we are all coming with our experiences and with our networks experiences. And we're still not representing all 64,000 experiences of people waiver services. So this is very helpful, and I'm glad to be hearing from you all and getting some additional insights. I'm going to move to the next service. So this is our pre-meeting feedback. We had 7 people recommend waiver 1, which is that own home. We have 1 person recommending waiver 2 only, and then we have 4 people recommending both. So again, that will be, we'll get to vote on all these at the end. So even with the pre-meeting feedback, that's just like the initial temperature. So when we get to the end of this chunk of services, we'll vote on all the services. Can we go next slide, please? So crisis respite, this is a service that are short-term behavioral or medical intervention services. And the goal is to protect the person or others living with them and to provide relief and support to the caregiver. So crisis respite can be provided in home or out of home. So a person may receive crisis respite when the caregivers and service providers cannot provide necessary behavioral or medical intervention and the protection of the person or others living with them. And as it stands today, this is available regardless of where you live. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see how people initially voted. We had 2 people recommend waiver 1, 1 person recommend waiver 2, 9 people recommend both. So what questions do we have about crisis respite that we can answer, or what are our experiences around this service?
So this is designed on the slide before this, it talked about to help with, let's see, for behavioral medical intervention and protection of the person um living with the go ahead, because I just want to make sure that I'm staying in context with where we at.
Yep, you are in the correct place, Arbella.
Okay, so this is specifically designed to relieve and help the caregiver and the behavior. The second paragraph in the last go ahead. I lost it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Mary, if you want to go back a slide, please, so that we can have the discussion while people can see the description, that would be awesome. Thank you. So yes, this is about a temporary relief.
Yes.
It is about making sure it's both a relief, so that respite piece, and then the behavioral or medical intervention.
Thank you, Maria.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have questions about this service?
This is Lauren. Would personal care be included in that? Direct support care?
Within respite or crisis respite?
Yes.
It's an all-inclusive service. And it is it's very person-centered. So services that it's set on market rate. So when it's out of home, it might look different than when it's in home. But generally, yes, crisis would include all of that, the care.
Okay.
So not
Okay.
just behavioral or medical intervention. It would be the whole care.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
Maria, this is Bud. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how somebody currently living in a licensed setting, say a CRS group home setting, could access crisis respite and under what circumstances? Because crisis respite is oftentimes provided in group home settings. So when would you need it? How would you get it? Talk about sort of the existing practices and policy limitations.
Mm-hmm. And I also saw that Dr. Kate asked, where is this service to be provided? So there are a lot of different settings, and this is one where maybe you want to look at the policy page on the CBSM, but we have, yes, licensed settings, adult foster care, child foster care, the community residential service, and it's allowed in licensed hotels. So this is for the out-of-home crisis respite. And so those settings are going to look different, and then you have, sorry, I'm trying to articulate this. I might tag in Stephen a little bit, but the license settings, so adult foster care, child foster care, and CRS are generally going to be the home is licensed for crisis and not for traditional community residential or family residential services. How you would access that, it's going to depend on, again, it's going to depend on the person. So I'm going to speak with a lot of hope and ideal right now, and I know you can all correct me on that, but ideally we would have somebody who is experiencing a crisis, whatever that may be, have a very engaged team. So they would have their provider talking with their case manager, talking with them, connecting. Sometimes what we see though is a very rapid change, right? So if somebody experiences psychosis, it could be as fast as a flip of a switch, in which case you might go through an emergency route to get services, but hopefully we would have things like positive supports being put in place prior to somebody ever needing crisis respite. A lot of times it does include taking a person out of their home, which again is not necessarily what you want to do when you're in crisis, right? Like, where do you feel safe? Where do you feel comfortable? And it's in your home. So the licensed hotel bit is a little more tricky because there's often capacity problems with crisis. Again, I'm sure as a lot of you know, crisis services are in high demand and crisis respite is not an exception. So we allow people to go to a hotel where generally they would have like a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 staffing ratio for up to 7 days. And it's about having the availability, or there's a lack of availability of a crisis respite placement in the community within 50 miles. And again, the whole purpose of this service is to prevent hospitalization. So we don't want people having to go into a hospital because they're just had a really bad time. So it's how do we as a community find ways to support a person? And then there's the in-home, which truly does happen in the person's home. And how do they provide interventions on site, doing different tasks with the person, trying to do some of that mitigation so that the person doesn't even have to leave their home. We do have a team within DSD that is our community capacity and positive supports team. And they work really closely with a lot of the people who are in really serious crisis situations. So that's another resource that you wouldn't just be expected to do this on your own. Again, the idea of a team being needed, and then our community capacity team works with the mental health, the behavioral health division to coordinate care as needed too. But I see your hand.
Yeah, so just that was addressing like 2/3 of the question that I had or suggestion, but the piece for present purposes, since we're trying to figure out whether this should also be available under waiver 2, which are licensed provider owned and controlled settings for the most part. The question is, if you have an increase in needs, if you're experiencing a crisis, but you already live in a group home, can you get access, or should you be able to get access specifically to the crisis respite service? And in most cases, I don't think that's what they typically do. They might bring in specialist services. They might bring in other services to consult with the group home. They might authorize more one-on-one or two-on-one services, but you're already in a setting that would otherwise be comparable to or exactly the same as a crisis respite, many crisis respite settings. So oftentimes when you're already in that setting, if you really are having a crisis, you end up going to the emergency room or to a nursing facility. So that's sort of I think it's that piece of it that we need to zero in on, because the question is going to be, should we offer this service when you're already in a 24-hour kind of supervised setting, and there are other opportunities to bring in more services to support you there. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm gonna just say no, those homes don't automatically qualify for crisis respite. They also have to be enrolled as a 245, well, 245D. They have to be enrolled as a qualified provider. So they have to meet the provider qualifications. And those are going to have things like specialized staffing when you're in crisis respite. So that's not necessarily going to be met in a home. And I think not just in residential settings are we seeing an increase in emergency visits, but just across the board. When we talk about capacity, we are working really hard to build crisis respite capacity. But when we're talking about the setting license, yes, the setting license might look the same, but the services are different and they're different service license. And today, a person who can be in a CRS and go into crisis respite and access that service. So,
would that include going to the psych ward? You know, would that include going to the psych ward? Is that part of this what you talking about?
this would be to prevent that, Abdullah. This would be to prevent somebody from having to go on like a mental health hold or into behavioral health hospital or to the psych ward of a hospital and stay there.
This is to prevent that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's used as a step down from that situation as well. So that transition and it's a complicated service. So I appreciate the questions. And again, I just want to emphasize that today it's available to everybody, crisis respite, regardless of where you live. I think let's move to the next one, the next service. We looked at the voting on this. You go one more, please, Mary. Thank you. So day support services, I did mention this one earlier. These are going to be services that teach and develop essential and personally enriching life skills that support a person's community relationships, involvements, and inclusion. So the person could receive day support services outside of their home or public settings in the community. So what this really means is it's like, how do we get people into their communities during the day? It's going to have the ability to go out in groups. So there's a staffing ratio that allows for more than one-on-one. And it's just different, hopefully directed. Again, the expectation is that it's directed by the person and not by the provider as to what is a personally enriching life skill. So let's look at the voting. So everybody who provided pre-meeting feedback did say it should be on both the waiver 1 and waiver 2. So let's see if there are any questions on it. So we have a question. Thank you, Dr. Kate. And it says, so this is a group activity and not an individual one. Yes and no, it can be individual, or it can be provided in a group. I think most typically you'll see it provided in a group setting. We have a question of, could you give examples of how adult day services differ from day supports? We can. So the adult day services are generally going to be more center-based services that look at activities in a setting. And the goal of the day support services is to be more community focused and community engaged. So if we saw a day support program that wasn't providing opportunities to get into the community, you know, that would be kind of a flag for us, and we want to do some technical assistance and ask, you know, what's going on? How do we help support you get in the community? Again, adult day isn't about barring people from community. If people want to go out, they absolutely have the right to. But that is kind of the bigger differences. Adult day does require a building, whereas day support programs could be a buildingless program. You could meet in the community at different places and engage in activities or volunteer, or whatever, you know, whenever you want. So we do have some day support services that they don't have a building.
Okay, what about the transition for this service from the person who live independently versus the person in the group home? Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, today, both of them, everybody has access to it, so there shouldn't be a difference. If you're living in a licensed setting, you would probably, you know, it would need to be with a different provider than your residential provider. You want to have different staff and the opportunity to meet different people. But the other piece that's the difference between them, kind of that higher level, is they're licensed differently. The populations are different. So again, we talked about earlier, adult days really focusing on that older adult population, and they have different expectations for goals and engagement.
All right, thank you.
Maria, I'm gonna just quick jump in here to ask if there are members on the call that provide day support services and or adult day services to, you know, talk about some of the differences between the programs and provide just a little bit more in the field expertise around these different services, just welcoming others to join in on the conversation. So it's not just DHS describing and talking through the realities of the services.
I just would say that I have a couple of aides and I receive services from the current waiver, and my PCA takes me places like to community events and help me and encourages me to engage in different community settings, and which allows me and helps me to be able to advocate while I'm engaging and participate you know, with other organizations. My PCAs are the ones that's been doing that, you know, for years. I just put that out there.
Does anyone else have any other examples of services they receive in this category?
This is Sue from Possibilities, a day service provider in Rochester. And there are differences between the two. In day support services, even though it may start as a group, it's still very individually focused on the kinds of activities or programs that individuals wish. That's the key, is to respond to each individual's preference and provide options, whether it be art or volunteering in the community, etc., which many day support programs offer. And in adult day, at times we'll have individuals who may not be able to go out into a community, may not be able to speak, but still need the socialization and to be somewhere. So they're in a group setting, but they all know each other and communicate in a different manner, and being in that group setting within a center is so critical. I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you, Sue. That's appreciated. Seeing a couple more questions and
This
comments.
is Sonia. I just have a comment. I think it would be really nice if there could be like a detailed explanation for the differences between like these day support services, because like everybody else is saying, like it's kind of confusing. Like you have the adult day for the 55, and then you have the DTNH day support services. Like, so if there could be just like a nice informational on that includes some of the things that folks have said just right now about these differences, because this is a crucial service for a lot of communities. And you know, it would be nice. I think more people need to know about these services so they can utilize them. And I think there's a lot of confusion in between which day services for who and what. So that's just me speaking from, you know, working with a number of waiver participants who have not been able to take advantage of some of these due to complexities in language.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very helpful direction. I see a comment that says, sounds like an opportunity to rename the service to better describe it. If you have suggestions, we'll always take name suggestions. It's always harder than you think. So please feel free. There's another question. Would day supports be just paying fees to take a pottery class, for example? So no, it would be a little different than that. And again, we can get into the CVSM and really dig into the policy if you guys want to at the end. But for the sake of our work together today and keeping us on track, I'm going to say let's put a pin in that one, and we can circle back to it. Would programs like RISE, et cetera, fall under this? RISE is an enrolled provider. So yeah, there are a lot of providers who are enrolled to provide this. What is the difference with DTNH and day support? So DTNH is no longer a service. That was day treatment and habilitation. We streamlined it. And it either, like, parts of it went into pre-vocational services, and then parts of it went to day support services. I see the comment to be clear with each service, whether they are currently provided in both provider-owned or controlled settings and own home settings might be helpful. That way everyone knows whether we're voting to preserve the access and eligibility or recommending a change. Yes, and when we vote too, we can re-emphasize that.
And Maria, just want to call out that Dr. Kate has her hand raised.
Thank you. I got nothing on it, so please, Dr. Kate.
So how often are people in congregate settings able to do individual outings? Because with the staffing shortage, it is mostly group activities. And by calling it community involvement, you are by de facto stating that people in group settings are not part of the larger social setting. For clarity, how often do you call going to Target a community outing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, thank you, Dr. Kate. I think there's a lot to unpack there too, because, you know, in my day-to-day, I don't do community outings. I don't leave my house. My community outings are taking my kids to, you know, their activities, karate and dance and whatever they're in. So I do think that that's an interesting, that's another layer to the conversation that we need to continue to have. Like, what is a community outing? Do people who don't interact with our services call things community outings? Yeah, and if it's not, if we're saying it's not a community outing, but you're in community with people, what is that implying about who you're seeing, where you're seeing them? So thank you, Dr. Kate. That's really important to add to this conversation too. Okay, I'm going to move us to the next service. And this is going to be the last one in our set. So thank you all for hanging in there and providing some really good feedback. I am very much enjoying this. Environmental accessibility adaptations, or what we call EAA, are the physical adaptations to a person's primary home or primary vehicle to ensure the person's health and safety or enable them to function with greater independence. So this is going to include things like ramps, widening doorways in a home, adding pedals, hand pedals to a vehicle, and then the service also includes assessment and installation. So both coming into the home and seeing what would be beneficial, what would help a person, and then actually doing the modifications. We do an annual training. We have a subject matter expert who does an annual training on our team with lead agencies to help make sure people understand what this service is, because it's so broad and so wide. If somebody on the call has had an experience where they've received an adaptation and they want to share that, please feel free to do so now. And Dr. Kate, I see that it says ramps and other modifications to a vehicle. So yes, things could be to the vehicle, the primary vehicle, or to the home. So some people get their vehicles modified with hand pedals. Some people need to have ramps put in for their chair access, but it's also to the home. I'm going to have us go to the next slide so we can see how people voted in the pre-meeting, and then people can provide questions if they have questions, and then also if somebody wants to share their experience, that would be great. So in the pre-meeting feedback, we had one person recommend waiver 1, one person recommend waiver 2, and then 11 recommend both. And I think that totals to 13, and we've been having 12, so I'm a little confused. So I'm going to look at the chat for question and answer. If you have your hand up, I cannot see it right now, so please let me know.
Tisha has her hand up, Maria.
Okay, please go ahead.
I think if you go to the chat first, you might answer my question. So I'll pipe up if it doesn't answer it.
Okay, we have a question about people still have friends and family in the community where they may go on a regular basis for weekends or holidays. Shouldn't this be provided in some of those circumstances, say to their parents' home? That is a great question. There are some federal requirements around this one, and right now our waiver limits us to primary. So if you primarily don't live in a home, we are not allowed to modify it. There are some adaptations that maybe are mobile that we could move between homes. So it's kind of a complicated question. We couldn't just modify 2 homes or 3 homes or vehicles. It has to be the primary. Is transportation covered anywhere to access the community? Yes, we have a whole service called transportation. So again, we'll be talking about that in April. I think it's at the back end of our alphabet. So yes, transportation is covered under transportation, and there's different kinds, different types. I am wondering about the need to separate home from vehicle. If you are in a provider setting, you would not need this for home mods, right? The provider would be responsible. However, if in a provider setting and you have your own vehicle, would this apply more likely? We actually were asked by CMS to separate out our environmental accessibility adaptations into home and vehicle. They previously had been one. So when our federal partners asked us to do that, we did. We did not change the amount of money available to people or the qualifications. We literally just separated out into 2. So there is some funding limitations with this service. It's $40,000 a year without an exception process, and then you could go through an exception process. Again, this service does get really complicated in policy really quickly. As your questions are reflecting, like, it does get really complicated. So Yes, if a person's primary vehicle. So we do answer a lot of these on individual policy basis. So Lisa, to that point, if you have your own vehicle, would you get to modify it? Yes, and we got to talk about what's primary. Dr. Kate, I see your hands, but I've got just a couple more to get through and then I'll circle back to you. Why is this a question? The question is, should it be on both waivers? And then the other question is, what defines a primary vehicle to get modified? That is laid out on the policy page. So I'm going to run over there really quick and grab that language.
Got it, Maria.
Oh, thank you. So Leah's going to put that in the chat for us. So Dr. Kate, do you have a question, comment?
There have been lots of feedback in my groups that actually getting these adaptations is incredibly difficult.
Yes, thank you for that. So again, we work a lot with lead agencies on how to have these happen, how they occur. Because of the assessment process, that can slow things down. When we have, like this time of year, it's almost impossible to get a ramp put in because in Minnesota, what happens in the winter, the ground freezes. So that's not, that's not helpful when you need a ramp right now. And again, that national staffing shortage impacts every sector of our economy. Not to try to at all make excuses or to say that it's doesn't need improvements or changes. We need to be faster about it. And I think our policy SME on this has a lot of thoughts and comments and really tries to help us move this forward. Trish, I see your hand.
Thank you. Two things here. One, the environmental accessibility adaptations. I really think this is another opportunity for us to really rethink the way we're approaching this. I mean, just reading this without any discussion, and maybe even with the discussion, it still lands at environmental accessibility. If you have a physical disability or need for an adaptation, then here are the few things that, can be a part of, what the waiver can help with. It really misses, I think, the accessibility piece for individuals who have intellectual or social emotional other issues than just strictly a physical limitation. So I think that it'd be beneficial to rethink this. And then I just feel like I wanted to comment on all of these things that it does get really frustrating to spend this much time, and I'm glad we're doing it, but on things that they're the kind of the in the perfect world, here's how it's going to go. But I think we've all experienced, and we hear from the community, an overwhelming experience of things being denied, or some of this stuff from the manual being so grossly misinterpreted, and that compliance piece missing, that it's really frustrating to spend so much time on this when in reality we can talk till we're blue in the face for years about this, but until we do something at a different level, maybe nothing will change. And I'm trying to be really optimistic, but I just wanted to voice the frustration I think that we have with things getting denied. Like like I said in here, the denials for such really odd reasons, and appeals, and the cost of the appeals over really small things that clearly fit into these descriptions. I don't know. I just wanted to acknowledge the frustration and still do my best to stay optimistic here, but just to acknowledge it.
Thank you for that comment and that feedback.
Maria, I also just want to call out Bud has had his hand up.
Oh, okay. Again, can't see that. Bud.
Thanks. This is Bud. I guess I'd like to just try to tie a few different threads together. Again, it seems to me like we're being asked a relatively high-level, broad question. Should each of these services be available in both waivers? And a lot of the questions, a lot of the trouble that we all seem to be having is to answer that question, we just need to know if there's anybody in one of those settings under either of those proposed waivers who could benefit from and should get access to the service. The answer is yes. We don't, for today's purposes, we don't have to have much more discussion. The problem is it's sometimes hard to get to yes because we're getting sidetracked by real questions about, well, if not everybody needs it, are there going to be additional rules about who can get them and how they could get them? Like for environmental modifications, are you only going to be able to get access to car modifications if you live in a group home because the group home would be responsible for modifying its own group home and they wouldn't have access to that? Those types of questions are all great questions. I don't know whether they're in our scope or not. I don't think we're going to resolve them today. I don't know whether we're going to try to resolve them later. And then the final question is the practical one of, even if it's available, it's not really available, it's hard to get, it's denied, that kind of thing. And that's all realistic too, but I don't know whether we're being asked to weigh in on that either. Taking all those threads together, I'll just point out that, a lot of us submitted public comments to the proposed waiver amendments yesterday that are currently pending. And there's this whole process that many of you already know where DHS goes through and they take comments like this and their own ideas, but they look at issues within the waivers and they try to change policy and the description of services and add services or take away services on an ongoing basis. And I'm not sure how our process, the Waiver Reimagine process, is connected to that process, except indirectly. I mean, we're not being asked to be directly involved and to make specific recommendations for specific waiver amendments, but maybe we should be. And I'm just raising that because this is the type of thing where there are a lot of these connected or related efforts going on out there, but they're not all directly connected. And we're not weighing in on that, and we're not being told about that. So I'll stop talking now. I just wanted to make those observations, try to tie some things together. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Bud. Really great points. Yes, our primary task today is for us to say, should this be on one waiver, on waiver 2, or on both? Secondarily, things that might seem out of scope are going to be conversations around current policy, right? Like the questions are to help you clarify what you need to know to say what waiver it should be on, to Bud's first point. We streamlined the services. We looked at policy in phase 1 of this, which again, I'm not saying that door is shut and is never going to be open. As Bud discussed, we have waiver plan amendments, public comment, every legislative session, things get open for conversation. But yes, for the purposes of today, it's how do we understand that this service as it is today, where should it be when we move to 2 waivers? Not necessarily changing the policy within the service, but that could end up being part of our conversation. If we decide a service only needs to be on 1 waiver in the future, and today it's on 2, we might need to talk, or on all 4, because we have 4 waivers today. We might need to talk about how the policy would change in that situation. So that is kind of how that all ties together. Dr. Kate, I see your hand is up, and is it still up or is it another comment?
That was taken down. Bud's is still up, but I think that's up from before, and I'm not sure, this is Leah, sorry, if Abdullah had a quick comment before we go to voting.
Yeah, I did. What I'm hearing is that it's not working in the first place. It's not working. And the people that's trying to use it and access it is, with the red tape, like the ombudsman was saying, the time being spent on it and the distraction from the actual determination of what. But if it's not working now, what's the big deal about it, whether it's on 1 or 2 or how, if it's not clearly stated or it's not being able to present what it's designed to present. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Abdullah.
I just wanted to add, Maria, that all of this information is being documented, and all of the carve outs and the caveats and the disclaimers that people are recommending will be noted in our meeting notes, and also information to share in the legislative report. We would like more you all to be involved in language we draft in the legislative report, language we draft in our waiver plans as we move toward getting federal approval for these changes. And so I just wanted to let people know we want you all to be involved from the beginning development to the end. And we have had conversations about which services should be available by waiver with a lot of similar caveats that we're discussing today. And so it's really helpful to hear about from you all what isn't working and what we need to consider changing and have some of those details. So again, appreciate the conversation and just please know that we're noting this as we continue the discussion today. Thank you.
Sure, thanks for acknowledging that. Thank you.
I think we are close to our first 80 minutes, so I want to just kind of get a place where we can wrap and take a break. But I did just want to say thank you again. Thank you all for all of the comments and the feedback. Truly, I mean, I think you've been watching the wheels in my head turn as we're bringing up some real life things, and it's wonderful to have that opportunity. So I'm going to hand it over to our facilitator, Leah, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everyone, for fabulous discussions. We're now going to vote on the waivers. And as Leah Z mentioned to you beforehand, I have a list of members. I'll call on people individually, and then you will let us know per the homework and the pre-communications that you received, whether you believe each one of the 7 services should be offered under waiver 1, which is living in your own or family home, waiver 2, which is a provider controlled setting, or both waivers. So I'll call on everybody here. There are a few people who I think are going to be giving their votes maybe via chat or text, which is fine. And I'll apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce your name, but I appreciate you working with me. The list currently is by first name or title. So we'll start with the A's. My colleague Mary is poised, and she's going to be tallying people's votes in the table that you can see on the screen. Was there a question?
Yeah, I'll wait until after we do this voting, but I had put something in the chat and then we didn't have time for it, I guess. So after the voting, maybe I can ask quickly.
Okay, thank you, Pat. I'll be sure to get back to you. Okay, so are there any questions about the process first? I'm going to call on individuals by name. You will go through the 7 services and then tell us whether you believe that service should be under waiver 1, waiver 2, or both. Abby. Is Abby? Hi.
Yes. All right. So for 24-hour, after the conversation today, I'm opting or think it should be under both. Adult day services, both. Assistive technology, both. Chore services, I'm still leaning towards waiver 1. Crisis respite, both. Day support, both. And then EAA, both. So all both except chore services, V1.
Thank you, Abby. I'll let Mary get caught up there. Next on the list is Allie, and after Allie is Annie. Do we have Allie on the line with us? Allie Cafiro? Okay, we'll go next to Annie Braun.
Hello. I would
Hi.
vote for 24-hour waiver 1, adult day, both, assistive technology, both, chore service, waiver 1, crisis respite, waiver 1, day support, both, EAA, both. Thanks.
Annie, can you, Mary, I think we need to make twos instead of ones there for adult day and assistive technology. Let's make them both twos. Where it says adult day both, oh, no. Instead of having 2 ones in the both, let's change that to a 2. So
Okay.
it doesn't look like 11. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
There we go. 2. And then Annie, can you help Mary just refresh us for your votes for chore services onward?
Yes. Chore service, waiver 1.
Thank you.
Crisis respite, waiver 1.
Mhm.
Day support, both. And then EAA, both.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I think we're into our rhythm now. Arbdella, you're up next, and then after that I have Chad and Dr. Kate.
Okay, one quick question. Waiver 1 is the people at home, right?
Right.
Okay, 24-hour would be 1. No, 24-hour would be both. Adult day services would be 1. Assistant technology 2. Chore
Oh,
services.
hang on one second there, Arbdella. Mary, Arbdella voted adult day services under 1, I think. Is that correct, Arbdella?
Yes, that
Great.
would. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. It's the services that we just talked about, right?
Yeah. Right. And then
I
assistive technology.
Okay, put the adult day services both, assistant technology
Oh,
both.
oh, you want both now for adult day?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Just want to be sure we get it right.
Okay. Chore services,
That's assistive technology is both. Yep.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Choice services 1, crisis respite both, day support services both, and EAA both.
So the last 3 are both. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Arbdella.
Just a question, if people would just kind of do a little bit slower, I'm not typing as fast and I have to change the number.
Chad is up next and Dr. Kate afterward. Chad?
Right. So for 24-hour both. Adult day both. Assistive technology both. Chore services. I want to say 1, but I think people have brought up interesting points. But 1, and then both for the last 4 or the last 3. Excuse me.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Dr. Kate.
Both, with caveats for waiver 2, provider setting, for all except chore services.
So both for all except chore services.
With with caveats for waiver 2 for some of them.
Okay, we'll note those in our, and then for chore services, was that a waiver 1?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have Elizabeth. After Elizabeth, I have Jennifer and Julie. Elizabeth?
I vote the same as Kate, so both for all of them except chore service.
Thank you. Great. And Jennifer?
Thank you.
24 hour, we'll do waiver 1, adult day services both, assistive technology both, chore services can be the waiver 1, crisis respite would be both, day services would be both, EE would be both.
Oh, I think you had crisis respite for both. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, I would imagine that if you live in a group home, you would want to have crisis respite available to you. Thank you.
Chore
Thank you.
services was 7.
That's right. Yep.
Thanks, Mary. You're doing a great job.
Did I get day support? Do we have to change that one to 6 or we keep it 7? 7 for
That's
that?
7. That's 7, and so is EAA.
Okay. Thank you, Leah.
Takes a village, everyone. Thank you. Next up, we have Julie. After Julie is Kathy, and then Kate. Julie?
Hi, I'm going to make this easy. I'm voting both for everything. The grocery delivery is what stuck out under chore services that, given some of the earlier conversation, I think that needs to be under both.
Mary, I think you missed chore services under both there.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think that under crisis respite for both should be 7.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you, Julie. Next we have Kathy.
Yep, this is Kathy. So 24 hour is both. Adult day services is both. Assistive technology, both. Chore, both. Crisis respite, both. Day support, both. Environmental accessibility, both.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up, we have Kate. After Kate, I have Kelly and Lauren. Kate? This is Kate Barton. Kate Barton.
Everything except for chore services is both. Chore services is waiver 1.
Thank you.
So everything?
Both, except for chore services. Thank you, Kate. Next, we have Kelly.
Hi, it's Kelly. I would say I would like to see I'd like to see all of the services offered in both waivers, because we talked a lot last meeting about people possibly moving between, residential settings versus like family settings. And if we're really trying to empower people and decrease confusion, I think all of the services should be available no matter where you are. So you can kind of keep your plan of care in both settings. So both for all, please.
Thank you, Kelly. Next up, we have Lauren, and after Lauren, we have Lisa Evert and Lisa Harvey. Lauren?
This is Lauren. I'm saying both for all except waiver 1 for chore services.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. And I see some comments about why we're not using the polling function. And one of the reasons is that people have changed their mind as we've had discussions. And so we wanted to allow everybody the opportunity to share their thoughts on the waivers. Next up, Lisa Evert.
Good morning. I will vote both for all choices.
Thank you. And do we have Lisa Harvey with us today? If not, next up is Mary, and then Meredith and Myrna. Mary Fensky? I don't see.
Hi, when you sent out the survey prior to the meeting, I said that all the services should be under both waivers. The discussion today has not changed that. I think that all of these services that we've talked about so far should be under both waivers.
Thank you, Mary. Next up, we have Meredith.
Yes, I'm gonna go with 24-hour emergency assistance under waiver 1. Adult day services, both. Assistive technology, both. Chore services under waiver 1. Crisis respite, both. Day support services, both. And EAA, both.
Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Next, we have Myrna. After Myrna, we have Pat and then Polly. Myrna?
Yes, I would like to see all of the services available in both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Pat.
Yeah, hi. It's been a good discussion this morning. At first I was saying, yeah, both for all of them, because I agree that if people are going to be able to move back and forth, but that sounded kind of like a logistical nightmare if someone is bringing their chore person where there's already somebody in place at a residence. So, so I thought, okay, no, I'm going to go back to what I had thought initially, which, so 24-hour emergency is both, assistive technology, both, chore services.
Oh, sorry, can I just slow you down so Mary can keep up? So,
oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Assistive technology is both. We're up with you now. Chore
All
services.
Right. Great. Yeah, chore services, waiver 1.
Okay.
Crisis respite, both.
Mm-hmm.
Day support, both. Employment, both. Employment development, both.
Oh, we're just doing these 7 right now, but we'll come back to you for the other 7.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
All right.
No, thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Pat. Next up, we have Polly. After Polly is Rajutha and Rosalie.
I would say all of them both.
Okay, for Polly.
So that when we get to 1 waiver instead of 2, we'd have less changes to make.
Thank you.
Amen.
Good point.
Thank you, Polly. Rajutha?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For 24-hour waiver 1.
Okay.
Adult day services, both. Assistive technology, both. Chore services, 1. Crisis respite, 1. Day support services, both, EAA both.
Thank you. Awesome work, Mary. Next, we have Rosalie, Saudage, and Sherry. Rosalie?
Both for everything, with the caveat that of figuring out food flexibilities and grocery with chore service.
Okay. Now, Saudage is next, and I believe wanted to give contributions via chat. I
Yes,
did see.
and I believe she did both waivers for all services. And Sudaj, you can correct us if we're wrong on that. But I believe
Okay, I saw the comment chore services and EAA both with caveats for those in waiver 2.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so and both for all, yes. Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's
Thank
it.
you very much. Next, we have Sherry. After Sherry, I have Susan and Trisha. Is Sherry with us?
I would say all or both except for chore services. That would be waiver 1.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Next, we have Sue.
Morning. I have both for all except chore services for waiver 1.
Thank you. And next up, we have Trisha and then Zania. Trisha?
Thank you. I'm not sure if everybody was able to see the chat, and I had just put in there that I think every waiver recipient should be entitled to these services if they need them, if they're not being provided in another way. But then Bud makes a good point that, we've argued that the providers need to meet all individualized needs. And they shouldn't need another service on top of that. So to me, it kind of seems like either we need to parse out all of the different things that providers are supposed to do, but maybe they don't, or it would just make it more simple, I think, simpler if we could look at it from, yes, every waiver recipient should be entitled to these services, and provider controlled environments need to provide that.
So are you voting both for all of those services then?
Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you.
Doesn't mean that I vote for provider controlled placements to get paid extra for these things. But I know we're not talking budget. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. And Zania.
Both for all services.
Thank you. Then I just want to give time. Is there any member on the call whose name I didn't call? Are there any members whose name I didn't call?
Yeah, Leah, this is Bud. I don't think, for some reason, I'm not listed on the participant list.
I'm tempted to think it's a DHS conspiracy, but I won't go there today.
You're
I know you'll
funny,
give us some
Bud.
grace. I did see your name. I didn't know if you were a voting member or not, but Bud, please go ahead.
Okay. I vote both for all of them except chore services. Chore services is waiver 1.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that.
Thanks.
And apologies. Is there anyone else who is a member whose name I didn't call? All right, everybody, I'm sure you're all ready for it, but it's time to take a break. So we have a 10-minute break. When we come back, we are going to repeat the same process again for 7 new services where DHS will go through the service. We'll have time for Q&A, and then people will vote on those 7 services for which waiver they fall under. So go enjoy your break, and we will see you back here in 10 minutes. So at 11:55. And Mary, are you there?
Yes, Leah, I'm putting them in a note for it, and I'm gonna get ready for that next one so that it's gonna be posted on the other slide.
Now you have to if you copy from those 3 columns from waiver 1 where it says number 4 down to EAA for 26, you can just copy and paste those into the other 2 slides.
Okay, I'll do that. So I'm just getting ready for it, so we'll be good to go. Yeah.
So once you copy these 3 columns, remember you've got to put them in 2 slides, one that comes right after and then one that's further down in the PowerPoint.
Right, I know.
Thank you so much. You're doing great.
You're welcome, babe. Hey, it takes a village, as they say.
A lot of tap dancing, but well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. I hope you were able to get a break in there. Thank you again for your contributions. We're going to go to the next slide to summarize what everyone gave as feedback. So here is the result of our work to date. We're now going to hear from Stephen, who's going to take you through another 7 waivers. And just a reminder of the time, we want to keep our Q&A to 5 minutes. We went over a little bit in our last session, so to be able to get everybody out in time, we might need to stop some of those conversations and go on. Just have everybody be mindful of the time there. So next slide, and then Stephen, I believe it's over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. Mary, ready for the next slide? Oh, awesome. Is a repeat of the information that Maria shared earlier, but I also forgot to introduce myself. I'm Stephen Horn. I work on the waiver policy and compliance team as well. And as Maria was saying, we wanted to just ensure that there are other available resources if you're looking for more detail about what the services are that we are covering. And our goal today, as we mentioned a couple times, is to know what the service is to make a decision if it should be on the waiver for people living in their own home, or for the waiver when people are living in residential settings, or both. So that's where we're trying to get to with the questions and covering each of the service options. Next slide, please. So the first 3 services that I'll be talking about today are the employment services. The first one is employment development services, which are individualized services to help people achieve competitive integrated employment, to become self-employed and or establish a micro enterprise for themselves. A person can receive both employment development services and employment support services if they're seeking that competitive integrated employment opportunities while employed. So a current job looking for another job with developing new skills. And so this is one of the 3 different options that we have. And I see a question in the chat of defining competitive employment. Let's see if we have a formal definition. Is it competitive integrated employment is employment that pays a minimum wage or an industry standard, customary or prevailing wage with comparable benefits. And I'll try to drop that in the chat real quick. Oh, Maria, you already got it. Thank you. Can we go to the next slide and then?
Excuse me, you can't talk about that a little more? Is it or isn't it? The question that the person in the chat just asked, is the wages going to be minimum wage, or, you know, it's on yes or no?
Yeah, so competitive integrated employment is employment that pays minimum wage or an industry standard.
Right.
Yep.
It is. So it is going to be industry standard and all the other stuff that.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
And so our pre-meeting feedback, those that we received, we had all 12 were for both waivers. Are there any questions that members have in which they need clarification to help identify which waiver their recommendations would be for this service?
This is Kelly Friesen. I just have a question in general. You know, so some of us spent time and gave our input on some of these things prior to this meeting, and now we're going over it again, which, you know, I appreciate. We are having a great time for conversation, but how is this data going to be used? Because I'm hearing an overwhelming amount of people are saying they want, you know, services on both waivers, but where's this going to go? Or is this going to be like, yep, this is going to happen. If we all vote for it, it's going to happen? Or is this just a nicety and our input's going to be considered, but not necessarily going to happen?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Kelly. The input is assisting in making recommendations of what services can be on each waiver, and we would take that and review and assess what is allowed within the federal requirements, and then take the input in and match them together as best as we can. And so it is informing on what services would be available within each waiver. So far today, we've talked about services that we've known that do not have any immediate exclusion that's built in. So, so far we've been going alphabetical. One of the services that would have come earlier is community residential services. That is, or previously what we've called foster care. Those have some pretty strong areas in which those services may, or that would be on the residential waiver, and would make sense for the individual or own home waiver. And so that we've been intentional about some of the services that really do have very strong restrictions around what waiver they would go into, and wanting to have a robust conversation where the recommendations can be more flexible, so that there might be changes on, yeah, this would be one waiver, this would be a waiver two, or this would be both.
So yeah, just to confirm, we are pulling all of the feedback together, and these are recommendations from the advisory committee that would be part of the legislative report, the bigger, larger Waiver Reimagine legislative report, and help in building our new waiver plans. We're hoping that next year we can take some of these recommendations to a broader group of stakeholders to seek even more input. And we do appreciate those that did the homework and reached out to their networks, and all of this will be pulled together into what we're calling recommendations.
Any other questions, or are we able to go on to the next service?
Just a lot of comments that we'll make sure
Yeah.
that we note in our meeting minutes.
Alrighty, thanks. So employment exploration services is a service option that helps a person gain better understanding of what competitive integrated employment opportunities are available within their community, what those jobs might look like. Doing the exploration activities and experiences help inform the person to know what maybe their interests are that they didn't know that they had before, so that they can make informed decisions about what competitive employment options that they would like. This isn't a time-limited service that is available for up to 12 months following the initial authorization or incorporation into the person's plan. And then there is an exception to extend the exploration services. So really thinking kind of on the front side when you're seeking what kind of jobs that you might want to be able to do, this service is helping that exploration or the discovery of some of those skills or sectors of employment that you are interested in, or learning what interests you might have and what types of jobs fit those employment options. All right, do we have questions or any inputs from members who deliver this service or have received these services before that can give maybe a little bit more practice context to it as well?
I have a quick question. What about training to compensate or to help the individual get to this point with this employment exploration, and what you were saying when they decide, what is it? Is it anything in there that's designed to help them get there?
Yes, yep. So these services would be able to incorporate that skill building as well. That may be more in the development service.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Other questions? I can't see if any hands are up. Leah, I'm leaning on you to.
Yeah, no, I'm
that.
not seeing any at the moment.
All right, well, let's move to the third employment service. Next slide. So employment support services are individualized services to help a person maintain their paid employment in a community business or community setting. So this is kind of at the end of the two services that we've talked about now. Person's in the job and has some assistance or support needs to maintain that position. It occurs in community integrated settings, and it consists of both job support and self-employment micro enterprises, so working for an employer or having your own company and be self-employed. It does involve, or should involve, opportunities and experiences for the person receiving the services to interact meaningfully with coworkers and people in the community without disabilities. So within the job, coworkers who are not also receiving employment supports are also not on waiver programs. All right.
Does this include equipment that people might need to do their jobs based on their disability?
A person could have some employment support using some technology or equipment. That equipment may be purchased through other waiver services, depending on the need. But yes, they could be incorporating or using technology for that assistance through the support.
Okay.
Stephen, are you able to see the chat from Julie?
I do. I have not fielded that question before. So the question is, if you are self-employed and or working from home, how does this reconcile with occur in integrated community settings? I am a little stumped on that one for the moment. Does my team have any input or other members who are doing employment support in doing and assisting people remotely, what that looks like? I wouldn't want to put words into our employment support subject matter experts' mouth on how they have defined that. So I'm trying to pause a little bit to make sure I'm not redefining or reestablishing expectations.
I think it would be really good to get more information from our employment experts. However, my thought on this is you are choosing to work from home or with pandemic limitations. Possibly there are still some limitations there. And you are choosing self-employment. So when we're talking about that, it is, you know, your home is a community setting, right? If you're self-employed and working from home, or if you're not self-employed and you're working from home, that is your choice and that is your community. So I think that Bud also maybe confirmed that with his comment about working from home is okay if chosen by the individual because it's not in a segregated setting. So right, that's what I was trying to say, but you summed it up a bit more clearly. So you're not, right, working with other people with disabilities. It is typical of what people are doing with that don't have disabilities. It's, you know, standard practice right now, standard working environment right now for people to be working from home regardless. So what are other people doing? What is everybody doing out there? A lot of people are working from home. So it's typical of the community to be doing that.
And I did just throw the link into the Disability Hub, which has the
E1MN employment partnership. And that is where you're going to be best served to connect with that group doing that work on this, because our work with employment actually crosses a few sectors of state government. So they've done a really good job with collaborating and putting resources together. So that link is there for you as a resource as well.
Thank you, Bud, Maria, and Leah. Other questions on this? Otherwise, we can move to the next slide. The next service is family training and counseling, which are professional services that provide instruction and guidance to the person. It's a pretty broad service option that can be tailored to specific needs of the person or the family. Covers training by a qualified professional, training through classes, courses, and conferences. And this also incorporates our person-centered planning facilitation, the formal person-centered planning facilitation. Family counseling service may also include counseling from a qualified provider based on their credentials and for the person and or their family members in areas such as communication techniques, family roles, problem solving. And those are just a couple of the scopes of what that family counseling service portion of family training and counseling can incorporate. There are some limitations within this service on what is covered for those courses and conferences and trainings, and currently do see that the service is used by people both in residential and own home or family homes, with different portions of it used for what a person is needing within their plan. And that person-centered planning facilitation does include options for people across all age spectrum, across the age spectrum, and living arrangements. Do we have questions about the family training and counseling service? All right, we'll go to the next slide. The pre-survey.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
This is Leah. Mary has her hand up.
No.
Yeah. So this is where self-advocacy training for people, all the people who are going to be on a waiver are going to get the information they need on what these new waivers are going to be like. This is where all this would come in.
Yes, we do have some self-advocacy within this service as well. Yep, you are correct.
Okay. And the people who receive these waivers are going to need training on whatever it is, you know, in years hence when this is finally decided. This is the portion that will provide that training as well.
So there would be parallel training that we would be doing as a state to share information about the changes of 4 waivers to 2. That would be outside of a formal waiver service being delivered to have that information shared. We've done things in the past where there are, we're using the Disability Hub to relay information, direct mailings, listening sessions, using ways to disseminate information through existing processes that the person may experience, maybe during their annual assessment with their case manager or at the initial application. If you're new to a waiver, incorporating ways that this information is shared. So we do have other strategies in addition to a formal waiver service that would be something specific to a person's need that we can share of how these changes are happening and how to ask for more assistance or where to learn for more information.
Okay, thank you.
That was a good question. Thank you, Mary. And thanks for clarifying kind of both that formal waiver service and also how do we think about doing communication and getting the information in front of all of our stakeholders, all the people receiving supports and families. So the pre-meeting feedback on the family training and counseling, we had 5 5 members recommended just on the waiver for people living in their own home or family homes, and 7 recommendations for both. If there's any information or any other questions that will help confirm your recommendation, now's kind of the moment. We'll
This is Polly. I'd like to say that the family training and counseling and the person-centered component, planning component is important no matter where you live. Having the availability of that formal planning is critical for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Polly. All right, not seeing anything coming up in the chat or other hands raised. We'll move on to the next service that we're discussing today, which is home delivered meals. These are nutritionally balanced meals that are set, I believe, by the USDA about what that definition is of nutritionally balanced for the home delivered meal. And these are delivered to the person's home. It does have currently some specialized carve outs for people on receiving customized living and integrated community supports. So home delivered meals can be provided to people living in those 2 locations, along with people living in their own home and family homes. And it's not allowed for providers currently right now with a person who's receiving community residential services or family residential services, as it would be a duplication of the housing support agreement, or what used to be called GRH. And so these would be meals that are delivered to the person. The current service limitation is 1 meal per day, and they would need that assistance or don't have assistance in the home to be able to make their meal. I know there might have been a, oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead, Pat.
yeah, I don't have a question about the home delivered meals, but I just really want to, being a person who had pretty serious digestive issues over the years, what some people would consider nutritious meals. I mean, I think a lot of us know that is so dependent on, a individualized person. And so I know my son is in a setting where they think Hot Pockets are nutritious meals for dinner, for instance. And that's a far cry from, the recommended fruits and vegetables, the fresh, So I guess maybe that's a compliance issue. We've had several meetings with them, and we're not giving up. But I just wanted to point that out, that who's deciding what the nutritious meal is it really depends. It's such a person to person, and then we have people that oftentimes are on a lot of different drugs that affect digestion also, and I just want to point out the complexity of that issue.
Yes, thank you, Pat. And the there are standards that are a national standard on what is for the home delivered meals, what is considered the nutritional requirements for the home delivered meals that need to be met. These those are the federal agreements. I see a question in the chat about why the 1 meal a day limitation that is a federal limitation within what can be incorporated and paid through the Medicaid waiver programs. And so that's where the 1 limitation per day is occurring. And so when I think of home delivered meals, often people think of like Meals on Wheels. That would be the meal that is being delivered. There are other organizations that do that as well. The other question in the chat I see is customized living and integrated community living or integrated community support settings considered provider managed. And yes, they are. There are ways to adjust how the services are authorized in customized living to remove specific meals from a support plan and have meals prepared in a person's living setting, and can clearly delineate that a meal is not occurring from the service provider of customized living, and then a home delivered meal can come in. So there is some ability to kind of a la carte that customized living service and not have a duplication of Medicaid payment occur, in which allowing home delivered meals and customized living at the same time can occur. That level, that delineation that is occurring within the customized living service is not typical for other residential services. And integrated community support settings may not also, which is a new service, our ICS, may not always have a housing support agreement in place. And so there are situations, the facts of a specific location may demonstrate that the service is not duplicative. And so there are situations in which that can occur. And so we're really looking at the duplication not occurring. Right, and I see I might have answered another question from Kate about why only for people who live in congregate settings. The home delivered meals are for people living in their own home, their family home, and these two special carve outs. So that's the current policy. If we were looking at making future changes to meet a recommendation of the advisory committee, we would need to be looking at how to ensure that those types of duplications are not occurring in the future. And then a question about from Julie is, how is a client or a person supposed to learn about the options or exceptions? This is during the support planning. Typically, if a person's saying, I don't like the meals, or I want to have my meals in my own room in a customized living setting, or my own apartment within that customized living setting, that part of the discussion needs to be occurring with the case manager, with the county or lead agency, to explore how to make that happen. And so oftentimes we have these questions about what can occur, and the policies are going to try to inform that. That's part of the informed choice process of learning what can be done, what may not be done.
There's two other comments you could take quickly, Stephen, and then for time, we should move on.
Yeah, I see that. I think the first one might have more, keep them be very specific to your lived experience and how the policies or interaction with your plan. I don't think I can speak in depth about why a decision was made the way it was for your experience, but maybe offline that can be something done in more depth. And then I think the next one is input on seeing adaptations to have the meals prepared in a person's home or versus delivered, added to those who are on both waivers. And I actually think that transitions pretty nicely into the next service of Homemaker. So if there are, I think that might be a good time to make that transition. So we have Homemaker services, which help a person manage general cleaning, household activities, and does incorporate some meal preparation kind of within the household activities. There are 3 different Homemaker services, kind of tiering those out. There's a cleaning only, there's a one that incorporates home management, and one that incorporates some assistance with activities of daily living. And as you move from cleaning to home management to assistance with daily living, they kind of incorporate each of those service functions as you move along. Homemaker services can be received when a person is unable to manage the general cleaning or household activities, or the primary caregiver who is regularly responsible for these activities is unable to manage them or is temporarily absent. All levels of Homemaker can be provided to people living in integrated community support settings, ICS, but not in customized living, community residential services, or family residential services settings. There's additional policy about ensuring no duplication, and in ICS, that would be where separate providers are delivering ICS and homemaker services. And so homemaker services can incorporate assistance in making meal preparation, shopping for food, assisting with laundry, cleaning the home, and then the assistance with ADLs would be doing those homemaker tasks and then having some incidental support needing to help somebody maybe transfer or needing to dress appropriately to go out for the weather. One of the things that I also want to mention, it was kind of touched on when we were talking about the chore services, is that the chore service and the homemaker services are discretely separate and intentional. So we're thinking more ongoing week-to-week maintenance, cleaning with homemaker. And then chore services being a kind of one-off, really big project that's happening. Where we are able to rent dumpsters if there is a fire safety issue from a hoarding, behaviors that are occurring and needing to remove items. Able to do a more deep, heavy cleaning on tasks that the homemaker service scope does not perform. That may be a one-time thing or a pest extermination treatment that would be occurring. Those would be chore services, and then homemaker are doing the ongoing cleaning, home management activities.
Stephen, this is Leah B. There's a question asking if homemaker includes things like budgeting, household finance, and paying bills.
It does not include budgeting, household financing, or finances and paying bills. We may see that in another service that's available, such as individualized home support.
Thank you.
Hi, I just want to add in, okay, like that cleaning and all of that. I went through that, but they was the one that determined, the county was the one that determined that I needed those services, and they revamped my whole living environment. You know, I'm okay with it, but it's the way that they implemented it and the way that they did it that impacted my entire life. And as far as the budgeting and all that, my aides helped me with everything, and it's not under the umbrella of that last service that you named, but they assist me with everything. And in the event when the county stepped in and restructured my environment, my home, my life based upon their decision, you know, based upon a number of things, you know, it's just the way that it was handled, which caused such a disruption. And I'm a person with multiple disabilities and cognitive stuff going on. I won't take too much time, but I need to get that out there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Abdallah. I apologize that you've had an experience that you were not having your voice heard in impacting your home. I appreciate you sharing with the group your experience.
Not just my home, my entire life, because I couldn't find things, and things are different. My developmental aspect of the disability that I'm challenged with, it impacted that. And so I think when those things are implemented, it should be something in place to determine how that transition or facilitation takes place. So I'm not just letting you know that it happened. I'm telling you how what the impacts and ramifications was when it happened, because it happened to me. Thank you.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Abdallah. Within the pre-meeting feedback for homemaker services, we received 2 recommendations that it would be waiver 1 only, and 10 recommendations that it would be for both. To help you, members make the final determination or the recommendation that you'll make as a like we did for the first set of 7 services, are there any additional questions to help inform you of making your recommendation? All right, I'm not seeing any chats coming through or anybody unmuting. So we'll go to the 7th service that I'm covering today before we vote, called Independent Living Skills Therapies, or ILS therapies, which include art, music, and recreational therapies with a specific therapeutic goal and outcome specific to the person. You are able to receive ILS therapies in your home, which includes your own home, your family home, and provider managed homes, or in the community setting, such as a provider's office and where the art, music, or recreational therapy is occurring. The ILS therapies service is directed towards acquiring or maintaining or improving a specific skill and are not intended to be diversionary. And that's where it is connected to that therapeutic goal and outcome. This service is also able to be provided in person or remotely, as with several of our other services that can be performed in person and remotely. And so I've got a question on what does diversionary mean exactly? It would be diversionary would be that it is not intended to meet a specific therapeutic goal or outcome, that it's not having us being addressed to a person's need, and is just occurring to fill time, that it is just there. So it needs to have a driving purpose within the scope of the service of why it's occurring with the person. Not just to happen.
Could you give an example of that? Because I'm trying to, so if somebody, if painting was therapeutic for somebody, then they could either go to a painting class or someone could come in. I mean, it seems like almost anything could fit under art because it's such a broad category. I mean, I hear it's art, music, and what was the third thing that you were saying? Art, music, or
recreational therapy. So these are formal credentials and therapeutic activities that are occurring. So it's not just painting, it's not just doing music, is that there is the therapeutic underpinnings to the activities that are occurring within that specific type of environment.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I guess I'm just making the point that, I mean, I'm not criticizing it. I'm saying that, you know, juggling can be a recreational. I mean, I think any of those activities are therapeutic. Maybe some people don't see them that way, but I guess
Hi,
I've seen them be therapeutic. Hi.
This is Maria. I just want to jump in and say we actually have provider requirements for each of those, and I put them in the chat for you. So the person who those services must meet those requirements. So you're kind of getting more into what we would call alternative therapies under CDCS. For this service, it's a pretty structured set of standards and license.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about. All right.
For some reason it froze up when you were speaking. I think that was Maria. I'm so sorry. Could you repeat that?
And she put that in she did put that in the chat. So she's put in the chat the requirements, the certification requirements for professionals offering these skills to be included in this service.
So if I could just clarify like the diversionary piece, because I'm really confused by it. So if we said, you know, that an individual needs to ride a bike to fill their time because they just sit around all day, but there's no therapeutic purpose, then that would be diversionary. But if we talked about the therapeutic benefits and a therapist said, you know, this is what they need to do as part of their home program, then that would be more along the lines. It's kind of being able to justify the therapeutic purpose versus just a time filler.
Yes, within what the art, music, and recreational therapies professions are allowed to do. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I can't confirm on the specific example that you gave that would fit within a recreational therapy.
There's also a question asking if these services require a physician's order.
That is not a requirement of the service. Because a therapist is the one administering the service, they are the ones determining if the person qualifies.
Thank you, Maria.
The next question is there a planning component to ILS therapies where service providers can spend time making a weekly plan and reporting back, for example, or is this direct service only? The service is directly to the person with the person. The determination on the planning and the cost of the direct service, I guess I just kind of made an assumption of moving there. The service would incorporate those planning and reports of what is needed within each person's plan. The service itself needs to be real time, whether in person physically or remotely real time two-way communication.
I just like to add to that. My doctor was the one that you know, wrote the letter asking, you know, that I get that type of help and the other stuff that my other service providers had you know, asked, and I must say and the case manager was the one that allotted the time, you know, for that because that required extra time, but all of it been getting done under my PCA umbrella. I just want to put that out there. That's what's happening now.
All right, thank you, Abdallah.
And I just wanted to check with Trisha. I didn't know if she had another question. I see she's got a comment in the chat, but her hand is still up. Oh, she's taking it down. There you go. There's a chat from her though.
I'm sure it's out of scope, but I figured I better put it in there because it does represent the sentiment of a lot of individuals that I'm in contact with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for adding that comment to the chat, Trisha, about the experience that people are receiving regarding the diversionary nature policy application to service denials or service expiration. We'll make sure to document that. Thank you. So in our pre-meeting for iOS therapies, the pre-meeting survey, we had 2 recommendations that it would be just waiver 1 and 10 recommendations for both. Before we move on to our active voting for today, are there any additional questions that y'all might have to help inform your decision? Just pause for a second. Been trying to work on my staying silent for the questions that come in. All right, not seeing new chats. Annie will make sure that we incorporate that into our notes as well. And then we can move on to the next slide. Thank you.
So it's time to take a break and do some thinking before we come back to vote. The voting will be very similar to last time, where I will call individuals' names. We'll go through the 7 services that Stephen just covered, and you will let us know individually if you would like to see these services under waiver number 1, waiver number 2, or both. So we will reconvene at 12:50. That's 10 to 1. We'll see you then. Thanks, everyone. Mary, this is Leah. Are you able to copy the content of that slide for the next section?
Leah, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just asking if you were able to copy the content of the previous slide for this next section.
Yeah, it's already up there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, babe.
Ready for round number 2?
I'm ready for round number 2.
Okay. Well done. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Hope you're able to take a little break there again. Mary, if you could advance us to the next slide. This is a list of the 7 services that Stephen just covered with you. I'll call on your names again one by one, and if you could let us know whether you want the services under waiver number 1, which is living in your own home setting, waiver number 2, which is provider controlled setting, or both. And I have Abby, Annie, and Arbdella on the list. So I'll start with Abby.
Hello. For all employment services, I believe both should offer those. Family training and counseling also, home delivered meals, both, homemaker, waiver 1, and then the ILS therapies I have down as both.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to check, Allie is not here, so we'll go to Annie again. Annie?
I would do all for both. And I just want to, I guess, slip in a concern about having a lot of carve outs in waiver 2. So if they're in a specific setting, then this is available or this isn't available. I think that's difficult from the lead agency perspective. Just makes things very complicated. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Next, I have Arbdella, and after Arbdella, we have Bud. Arbdella, do you want to share with us?
Yes. I'm gonna vote that all of them should be included using the same explanation that was just used, so that the ones that's excluded because of the change of the 2 waivers, there'll be something in place instead of absolutely nothing being there. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that previous one. Mary, that's a 2. Yeah. There you go. Thank you, Arbdella. Next, we have Bud.
Hi, thanks. This is Bud. I think all of these were designed along the way to be able to be used by people in their own home settings, but there's a basis for some people and at least some provider owned and controlled settings to use any one of these as well. So I would vote. I would echo Annie's point that there are likely to be carve outs, so minimizing them is best, but where we do have them, they have to be crystal clear so you don't run into the confusion. But I would put them all under both. Thanks.
Thank you, Bud. Next up, I have Chad, and then Dr. Kate and Elizabeth. So, Chad?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I would say both to all of them as well, just to make sure there's that flexibility there, is because people talk about how needs can change, and then with the staffing shortage, all that stuff, it's good to have that flexibility there.
Thank you, Chad. And next we have Dr. Kate.
For both, with some caveats.
I think I'm hearing all or both with some caveats.
That all for both with some caveats.
Thank you. And Elizabeth?
I also still believe all for both, particularly if there are homes where people would be responsible for their own room that might not be covered in the general house cleaning that's done from a agency. So
Thank you. Next up, I have Jennifer, Julie, and Kathy. So Jennifer? I don't see Jennifer on the line, so we'll go to Julie.
Hi, I'm going to vote both for all as well. I was thinking about homemaker, but then realizing that the flexibility, staff shortages, staff fit are important considerations for the waiver 2. So I'm voting both.
Thank you. Next, then I have Kathy, Kate Barton, and Kelly. Kathy?
This is Kathy, and voting all for both. And just as I did all for both on the first grouping, just wanted to comment a little bit more because I'm following the pattern. I can comment more than vote. And I think it's so important to have flexibility. The programs, administering them are very complex. All the work you did in phase 1 really helped to simplify. And I think we need to stay on that track and that trajectory and keep it simple, because then it's more accessible to the people we serve, more empowering for them. They can be fully informed and having less things to navigate and less things for our employees to navigate as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Barton?
Hers are in the chat.
Okay, so Mary, she's got the employment ones are both. And then homemaker for waiver 1. So I guess all of them are going to be both except for homemaker. And I think that the 9 under homemaker for both should be an 8. There you go. Kelly?
Yes, I would ask that they both, or they all have, they all have both options. Sorry.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to have Lauren, Lisa Evert, and Lisa Harvey. Just let Mary get through these here. Thank you. Lauren?
All for both. And we might want to think about places where duplication of services would previously be concerned, making a special note why these services are needed in specific circumstances and why providers aren't meeting needs, because that definitely should be noted and addressed.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, next we have Lisa Evert.
Hello, I will vote both for all of the categories.
Okay, thank you. I don't see Lisa Harvey on the call anymore, but I'm just going to call that name. Lisa Harvey. Otherwise, we can go to Mary Fensky. Then we have next Meredith and Myrna. Mary?
Hey, I vote for both for all of these that we just went over, those 6. And I'll just add another comment too. And that is, this whole Waiver Reimagine has been going on for 6 or more years, and it still has another 3 years to go. And I'm just thinking about things that are going to change. 6 years ago, grocery delivery was not a big deal like it is now. We don't know what's going to be happening in the future, but as as an old person, I can say things are going to happen and things are going to change. And where do we have flexibility in this? Because I don't think people are going to want to do this again, finalize it in 3 years and then 2 years later, oh, let's go back and readdress. So flexibility and adapting to changing things in the culture and just ways of doing things. Just
Thank you.
Side comment.
Thanks, Mary. Next we have Meredith.
I'm going to say both for all as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then I have a note that Myrna might not be here, but I think Myrna's still on the call. Myrna, are
Yes.
you?
I'm sorry. I would like all of them for both.
Okay, thank you. Don't apologize. We're happy to have you here. Thank you. While Mary's getting those numbers down, next are Pat, Polly, and Rajuta. So Pat. Pat, are you there and able to share with us your votes for this grouping? We'll come back to Pat.
Hi.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yes, I'm also agreeing to do both for all of them. And I'll comment also that we are going towards being more flexible, and legislatures want everyone to be offered self-direction initially. And so, that's kind of where we're headed. Not that everyone's going to be able to do that, but ultimately, if, people get to live in person-centered principles, then, everyone's going to have more choices, hopefully. So making that happen is going to be the challenge, but I don't think the challenges should stop us from doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, so thanks.
Thank you, Pat. Next up, we have Polly.
Both for all.
Okay. Thank you. And next we have Rajuta.
Okay. First, I want to make a comment that we don't know what's going to be a budget for number 1 and number 2 waiver. And so I don't know if even though everybody needs the same services, I don't know if they are already paying for some of the services in waiver 2, then they shouldn't be duplicating that again. And so even though I do agree that everybody needs all these services, so I'm just going to say different numbers, like first 2 for both.
For employment development, yeah.
Yeah. And then family training for 1.
Oh, for employment exploration and employment support, did you also want both for those?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Family training 1.
1.
Okay.
Home deliver meals 1. Homemaker 1. And ILS therapies both.
Thank you. Next we have Rosalie. We'll take comments from Saudaj in the text, and then Sherry is next. Rosalie?
This is Rosalie. I am going to say both for all and just additional comment. This is, when we're talking about flexibilities and that, thinking about the budgets and the levels, I think this really opens doors too to really consider people's needs first and really think about not based on location, even though right now that's what we're looking at, but how do we create a spectrum of even algorithm when services are just cannot be provided by the provider, but there's extra support. So there's a different model we can look at based on the natural supports who can help support that person. And if the only available housing is going to be a group home, but the person wants to self-direct, that we're really opening a door to really think of new possibilities and how services can be delivered by allowing for these further service flexibilities on both.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Mary, to save your fingers, I'm going to tell you that both Sodaj and Trisha have voted both for all of them. So you could add 2 right down the columns. And then next we will hear from Sherry, then Sue, and then Zania.
And I was going to say both for all, please.
Okay. Is that Sherry who said that?
Yep.
Thank you.
You asked her to do 2 on each of them, and she only did 1 on family training, home delivered meals. And
thank you. Yep. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah.
Yep. There we go. Thank you. Great. Abdullah, I think you might be talking, but I'm unable to hear you. You're breaking up a bit. Mary, did you get Sherry's? Sherry is a both for all.
So it should be a total, should be 22, or are we at 23? Because I think I got the 2.
23. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe Abdullah is trying to make a comment, but I'm having difficulty hearing her. We'll try and be sure that we get to you.
This is going to conclude my participation. Man, I really like to stick around. This gonna conclude.
Oh, you're breaking up a bit, but I think you did tell us you needed to leave early. So thank you for your contributions, Abdullah, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Next we have Sue.
Hello, I vote for both on all.
Okay, Sue, thank you. And I no longer see Zania on the call, but we'll call that name just in case. Is there any voting member that I did not call on that's on the call? Is there anybody whose name I missed? And by the magic of technology, as Mary is copying your input, she'll copy that to the next slide so we can see both of your responses to the 14 services now. So this is how people just voted for the group of 7 that Stephen walked us through. Thank you, Mary. And going to the next slide, a reminder of how you voted for the previous 7 services that Maria walked you through. Thank you. If you take us to the next slide. The next steps, as ever, all of your input from today's discussion will be documented. You will receive the meeting notes with your comments considered and included. And then there will be a discussion of remaining services using a very similar process to today during the April meeting. Policy recommendations will be finalized related to services by waiver either in April or August. So as these conversations continue, then the policy recommendations will take those into consideration and be finalized afterward. We can go to the next slide. And regarding questions, again, DHS staff will answer questions related to today's topics as time allows. And we do have some time, so I will call on people for questions after we finish this here. And then all other questions will be responded to individually and in the RAC summary, either via email or in the frequently asked questions document. So just so that people know, any questions that you do have will be considered and responded to. Don't forget that you can also submit your questions to the waiver.reimagine email box at state.mn.us. And again, per previous meetings, there will be an evaluation survey sent out shortly, which will have space to capture additional questions that you may have. So with a little bit of time left, I just wanted to open it up and ask, are there any other lingering questions that people have for the DHS team?
This is Sue.
Hi, Sue.
And I have just one question. Knowing that we're entering a legislative session and DHS is likely working on a nice budget, will you keep us informed on anything that might affect and be related to our current discussions with Waiver Reimagine?
I'll call on a DHS team member to
Are you waking up?
respond to that.
Hi, it's Stephen. Yeah, if there are significant activities that are happening within the legislative process that are impacting the advisory committee's work, we would definitely incorporate that material into our meetings in a way that shares how it's impacting today and how that will influence or impact our future plans with Waiver Reimagine Phase 2. And that'd be very similar to, I think Budget was referencing earlier in the meeting, how we are still having waiver renewals and waiver amendments today within our existing 4 disability waiver programs. And those changes are also impacting what Phase 2 looks like, how those services are defined, the scopes of the service and program, and we're rolling those into the larger project here today. So the short answer is yes. We'd be incorporating as applicable.
Thank you, Stephen. Any other questions from people? Questions for the DHS team? Mary, we can go to the next slide, please. This is just reminders and future meetings. There is a Waiver Reimagine webinar that will take place on Wednesday, January 11th. The topic is looking back and forward at the work of the Waiver Reimagine initiative, and it's from 1 until 3:30. And you will receive information on that WebEx shortly. Please feel free, as with other topics in our discussions, to share that information with your networks and pass that on. But our next RAC meeting is going to be on Thursday, February 23rd. So maybe the snow might be melted. No, probably not, but wishful thinking. The topic for that meeting is going to be service mixes and rates, and that will be a 2-hour meeting. So unless there are any other questions, I'm going to wish you all well. Again, very, very grateful for your considered input, your thoughts, raising issues today through comments and conversations. And also wish you all safe indoor warm time away from the snowstorm.
We're done.
Thank you all. Happy New Year and happy holidays. We will see you in February.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Happy holidays.